coming to you live from Port-la-France here in Boulder. We're on cable channel 19 every Friday night at 8:30, every Wednesday night at 9:30, and we're on channel 59 in Denver Wednesdays at midnight on the TCI cable network on about 200 television stations all across the United States. So, hi Los Angeles, if you're watching, we're coming to you from Boulder this evening. We're going to be talking about mass famine in the world, and some people in Boulder are doing something about that. Reaching those in need is becoming increasingly difficult in famine areas. The areas of greatest need are often embattled regions or places of disputed territory. The long-standing conflict in Sudan and Ethiopia has prevented some food distribution in those areas. According to Time magazine, it is expected that the starvation and famine of 1990 will be 4 times that of famine that hit that area in 1984. So before we go on, or without further ado, let me introduce my guest this evening. On my right, on your left, Pam Stormo from Boulder. Hi, Pam. Welcome to the program tonight.
Hi.
You know, what are you doing exactly? You are in charge of FARM. What is that, and why are you doing it?
FARM is Famine Assistance and Relief Mission, and it's a non-profit organization that we started to help the starving people in Ethiopia.
That's a great name. It's a wonder nobody ever came up with that, you know, before. Famine Assistance and Relief Mission. Mm-hmm. No one came up with that before? I mean, it's a brilliant title.
Thank you.
Okay, so well, before we get into what you're going to do and why you're going to do it, you were in the Peace Corps for a while, and you are, I mean, you're qualified to do this job. What did you do in the Peace Corps? Where were you?
I was in Micronesia on an island group called Palau. And I was an English teacher and taught health and did youth development.
How long were you there for?
About 1.5 years.
A year and a half. Now, where's Micronesia, for those of us who don't know? It's someplace out in the ocean, right? One of the oceans?
It's a vast area of ocean, covering about 2,000 miles, and the island I was on was about, it's east of the Philippines, north of New Guinea, and south of Japan, about 7 degrees from the equator.
Okay, so in FARM, this is just to get some of your background. In FARM, what are you going to do? Are you going to go to Sudan and to Ethiopia and take food there, or what's your role? What do you see that you're going to be doing?
A lot of food has already been sent there for the famine, and we're going to help with food distribution. The problem seems to be getting the food to the people who are starving, and they have large refugee camps with thousands of people in them, and people are dying of diarrheal diseases, and we're going to bring medication over and help people with a little bit of health information and just giving them the food. A lot of these people are dying and they don't have the strength to even feed themselves.
Now, you told me earlier, before we went on the air, that when you were in Micronesia, a lot of times people looked at you even as the doctor or the only kind of health person because you were somewhat literate, or, I mean, you're qualified as a lay person, but that's about it.
One of the people who's going over there was a medic in the Army, and I'm also being trained in how to give inoculations and primary health care.
Yeah, and in a country like Sudan or in Ethiopia, in those areas, I mean, even the amount of medicine that you or I might know may be vastly larger than what they might know.
Right. Well, what I found in the Peace Corps is just having the kind of education that we have in the United States, that you have a lot to give and a lot to teach people, and a lot to learn also.
Why are you doing this? What made you, I mean, you just got out of the Peace Corps about 4 or 5 months ago or something? Or how long ago did you get out?
In September.
In September. And in this short of time, you have formed FARM as a non-profit organization, and now you're getting ready and raising money to go to another part of the world. I mean, this is really in the desert, isn't it, where people are, these are kind of like, we see children who are starving and dying and, you know, brushing flies away from, you're going into this area.
It's very sad. What I found in Micronesia is they have a lot of abundance. Palau is was supplied by the United States, and there wasn't a lot of need, and I wanted to do something that would really make a difference. And I think it's a tragedy that people are starving on this planet when we have plenty of food, and that I'm in the situation in my life right now where I can go over there and help in any way I can. And
you know, most of us think it's sort of like we see those pictures of starving children on television, and they say, send us money to whatever it happens to be. And I often look at those pictures and I go, oh my God, I don't know that I would be able to deal with this. I mean...
by being there?
Yeah, and that there is death and starvation and heat and sickness. How are you going to deal with that?
Well, I'm sure it will be very sad, and I'm prepared for people to be dying around me. But I also know that I can handle that type of situation, and that during the day you're there and you're doing what you can, and maybe at night you shed a few tears and you're very sad.
What got you going? I mean, why have you come from Micronesia and now within several months say, okay, we'll go to Ethiopia and Sudan and get involved in famine relief? What got you going? What made you want to do that?
My father's a local doctor, and he goes to third world countries with groups of doctors, and they do operations on people who may be born with cleft lips and palates, and people who have been in accidents and there's no doctors. And they go and do voluntary surgery, and that sort of thing has always interested me, helping people who aren't as well off as me.
Right. And so I mean, what made you pick Ethiopia and Sudan? How did that come up?
Because of the drought this year, they've said in Time magazine there's going to be up to 4.5 million people who are going to be dying.
Right.
And even making a small difference, I found in the Peace Corps, is you're making a difference. Even just trying to do something is trying to do something.
So now what will you do? There's another man involved with you, Greg Klein, who he was a medic.
He was a medic in the Army, stationed overseas. We both have overseas experience, which I think is important, especially going to some places desolate as Ethiopia.
Okay, and so now what are you going to do exactly? You're going to go from Boulder. Are you going to take food with you and have food shipped there? Or what's your mission going to be?
The food's already there. We're going to assist other relief missions that are already in place, like Save the Children and World Vision. And they're already there, and they're big bureaucratic organizations that oftentimes have ways of getting things done, but maybe that there's other ways to do them, and being a big bureaucracy, it's a little bit more difficult.
Okay, and now, so when you're there, you're going to be in the field, aren't you? I mean, you're not going to be in, what is it, what's the name?
Addis Ababa. We're flying into Addis Ababa, and then we'll be going down to the refugee camps down by the Sudanese and Ethiopian border by Juma. And there'll be both Sudanese and Ethiopian refugees.
Okay. Now, all right. Now you're going to be in the field, aren't you? I mean, you're actually going to be almost backpacking, or you're going to be in the desert. You're not going to be in some kind of bureaucratic situation.
Right. We're going to help bring the food down there. They usually have convoys of trucks who go at night, because sometimes there's bombings during the day because of the war that takes place there. And we're going to bring everything that we need with us in backpacks. So if we're ever in a situation where we need to leave, we can just leave. And also so that we can have our sustenance with us.
So in other words, if there's some kind of skirmish or a guerrilla attack or whatever, that you would be able to walk out of the desert, hopefully, if that happened. I mean, most of us don't think about this, you know. We don't think about what it's like for someone in the field in a country like this that's actually, and it's war-torn, isn't it? I mean, can you talk a little bit about that? I mean,
there's fighting between the head of the state is Mengistu.
Of Ethiopia. Okay.
And then there's rebels, and there's been fighting between there's several rebel factions, and I won't go into it, but there's been fighting, and they stopped the food from going to the different refugee camps, and they're worried about the food reaching the other side, so they hold up each other's relief efforts. But still some gets through, and things can be done, and we won't take any unnecessary risks. We'll be prudent, but we're going to just be taking a risk just by going down there.
Well, you say that, but if in fact, I mean, they seem to be, the food, according to Time magazine, to their reporters, the food is sitting in a lot of the distribution zones, and it's not being distributed because of the fighting. So you're really going, I mean, into what a lot of militarists would call a hot zone to do famine relief. I mean, it's To me, that seems fairly dangerous.
Right. Well, we've talked to people who are down there, and they say they do need manpower. They need
Mm-hmm.
they do need individuals who are going there, who have something that they can give, either health-wise or just getting things to where they need to go. So we have talked to people who've been there, and they say it's feasible to go there and do something.
You're watching Jan Scott Tonight. My name is Jan Scott, of course. My guest, Pam Stormo, a Boulder woman who has, in the 4 months since she's returned from the Peace Corps, put together a nonprofit foundation called Famine Assistance and Relief Mission to Sudan and Ethiopia for 1990. She is going into the regions there in the desert to help distribute food, and perhaps even just as important, to do health care for people who are dying from starvation and famine in that area. You know what blows me away is that you are one person, or that you and Greg Klein are two people with a vision, and then put it together here in Boulder, and now you're going to go and do it. You know, a lot of times, you know, if it's Friday night, we'll be sitting back watching TV going, what can I do? Or a lot of times we have ads that come on and they say send the money. And you know, the part that bothers me is we live in a time in this century when there is more than enough for everyone. We throw away more food in 1 year, according to statistics that I've read, that we've produced. Oranges, grain, that kind of fruit, that sort of thing. Well, I'll just talk about grain. We could feed the entire world easily with what we throw away, not off our tables, just off the farms. And I wonder, why do we, you know, why are we facing famine in Ethiopia and Sudan when this is the 20th century? This doesn't have to be happening anymore. I mean, and you're one of the only people I know, and I'm involved in the media all the time, that's actually saying, okay, we are going to go and do something. We are going to go there, and we're going to, you know, we're going to, you know, go into the field and be active. Why is it that so few people are doing that?
I think there's a lot of red tape. My friend Greg Klein wrote to a lot of the organizations asking how he could specifically help, and he didn't receive any answers. So it was his idea to go to Ethiopia, and he approached me. And I was looking for something of that sort to do, and we decided the best way to do it would be to do it out of Boulder and get the people of Boulder to help the people over in Ethiopia. Kind of how they help the people in their sister cities in Russia and other places, but a place that really needs some financial and assistance.
During the time of the killing fields in Cambodia, people from Boulder really got behind that, and there were doctors and people that went there in the late 70s. Just recently, bunches of people got together from Boulder and were involved in the airlifting food to 20,000 Sioux Indians on the Rosebuds Reservation in South Dakota who have been starving to death there right in our own backyard. We've done that twice in this community. Did you run into any people saying things like, well, why bother doing this, Pam? I mean, those people always starved. They're born in starvation. That's just the way it is.
Some people are really cynical and say things like, well, there's too many people over there, why not just let them die? And sure, that's easy to say when it's in Ethiopia, in Africa, but if they were your relatives, if that was your family over in Longmont or somewhere like that, and they were dying of starvation, you wouldn't be saying things like that. And there has been a killing field situation in Ethiopia.
There has been.
Where the government is literally starving out millions of people, and just the fighting between the factions, and it's a very sad situation. It just hasn't been publicized as much as in Cambodia.
Well, except that the Ethiopians and the Sudanese, they are our brothers and sisters. I mean, we all are of the family of man.
That's what I think so too.
Yeah, this just, it blows me away. One, what you're doing, you know, the fact that you're even willing to address this. It takes someone who is a leader, or in your case, you and Greg Klein, to say, okay, we're going to take a stand. We are going to do something about it. We're going to put our butts on the line here, and we're going to do this. you're trying to raise money for this, right?
Mm-hmm.
How much do you need, and how much have you raised, and what's the purpose of the money if you raise it? What is it?
Well, we're aiming for $10,000, and we have about 2,500 so far.
1,000 is 1,000 you put in yourself, and the other 1,000 Greg Klein put in. Okay, is that right? So you raised about 500 bucks.
And we just started our fundraising activities, and it will go for outfitting us, helping in transporting us over there, and for survival once we get there, and for medical supplies to bring over with us, and for transporting the food to the refugee camps.
Okay, let's talk about what kind of medical supplies do you need. And could we get a picture of the sign? We have a little sign made up on the wall. If you want to write this down as you're watching tonight's program, and you would like to support Famine Assistance Relief Mission, this is a Boulder project, and you can do something right here at home and help some people out. So what sort of medical supplies do you need to get?
And it is tax deductible.
Right, this is a nonprofit organization.
Malaria medication, we have a whole list, and we have advisors who are doctors who are going to tell us exactly what's needed over there.
Okay, and actually Greg
Basic
Klein...
vitamins and things like that.
And that's kind of Greg Klein's field, seeing that he is a medic, but he couldn't get off the mountain up there in Breckenridge to get down here because they closed Interstate 70 tonight. So
Right.
Okay.
He's working up there.
All right, and then you said you need some money to help distribute or transport food, so what would that money be used for?
In some cases, you need to make brides. In some cases, you may need to hire trucks, gas. Whatever situation may arise, you need to be prepared.
Right, so it's not like when you give money to, say, Save the Children or different relief funds, the money goes there. The food generally goes in an airplane, lands at an airstrip someplace, and then it gets involved in some kind of warring factions and never really gets to the people. So what you're going to be doing is getting it to the people.
Right.
You can take responsibility, in a sense.
Right, and unlike a large organization where they are effective, except oftentimes half of the money donated goes for raising more money. And so money that is given to this organization is going to be going directly to famine relief and not back into raising more money.
Okay. Let's see, so we talked about transport. Oh, you also, let me see, you need some clothes and equipment to be in the field, right? We talked about backpacking. What do you need? What sort of things do you need?
Backpack, sleeping bags, good hiking shoes.
And you need good new equipment that will sustain you in the desert. So if you happen to work at a company here in Boulder maybe that makes this kind of equipment, these folks are getting ready to leave. When are you getting ready to leave? As soon as you raise the money? Is that the idea?
We're leaving May 13th.
Oh, they're leaving May 13th. They need to raise $10,000 before May 13th. This is almost like a fundraiser for farm, but what the heck? We might as well do it. I mean, this is Boulder, and these are our people, and we ought to, I think, get behind Pam Stormo and Greg Klein. So if you work at a backpack company or a company that makes outdoor gear, the sign is up on the wall there, and we'll be showing it throughout the program. Why don't you give her a call, or maybe write to them and see if we can at least get you some equipment. Maybe there are some companies that could sponsor you with that. So $10,000. It's really not a lot of money, but what it'll do is you need air tickets, right?
Right, we paid for half of them.
You paid for half the air tickets already? Okay. And how long do you plan on staying there?
We'll be there 3 months.
You're going to be there for 3 months. Then, now you said something else in here, Families Assistance. I'll just read this. What farm does to help. Famine Assistance and Relief Mission is a nonprofit, non-affiliated relief organization. Farm does not donate money or supplies to other groups or governments. Farm sends trained volunteers to affected areas to provide direct assistance to ongoing relief efforts, to help establish new projects. So some of Farm's efforts include food distribution, basic medical care, giving immunization, teaching personal hygiene, sanitation, and assisting with agricultural and civil engineering projects. And as I mentioned earlier, Pam Stormo has been in the Peace Corps for 1.5 years in Micronesia, so it's not like we have someone who's just decided in Boulder, well, I think I'll go to Ethiopia and Sudan and get involved in a foreign country doing this kind of work. You've been trained, at least to some degree, in the Peace Corps. Volunteers. Do you need any volunteers now for anything?
We're looking for volunteers who have overseas experience. And we don't have a set number that we'll go with, but anybody who's willing to help and has experience overseas and has some experience that will help our team that's going, then we'd be interested in talking to you.
Are you going to come back and try to train some more team members to keep this going? I mean, is that the idea, to have this as an ongoing project?
We're going to see how it works out this time and see what the needs are. I know there's a big need in areas of Brazil where they're cutting down the jungle and they have masses of people coming in and having nothing to do.
So that can be a problem, huh?
Yeah, there's different places around the world, and I'm definitely interested in helping other people to help the people who are in need on this planet, so everybody can live a better life.
So, and $10,000, that'll basically be gone in 3 months, is that right? I mean, it needs to get you there. You need to, how are you going to eat? You're going to be in the field. I mean, you're going to be really, I mean, well, in the desert. How are you going to eat? I mean, and is there a chance that you could starve there yourself or get in trouble there?
Well, physically, we're doing some strenuous training, so we'll be able to get out of any situation should it become difficult. But we're landing in Addis Ababa and going to the refugee camps, which are hundreds of miles away. And we'll be going, when we start getting low on supplies, we'll be carrying like 50 to 70 pound packs on our back. We'll go back to Addis Ababa and resupply.
Okay, so you may have to, I mean, you may have to hoof it through the desert.
It's a possibility that we're prepared for.
Okay, and you're training for it. It makes a lot of sense to me. I was just thinking about that when we talked earlier. If there's some kind of military action that happens to start near a refugee camp, then what you would do would be to hoof it to the mountains and try to find your way back.
And they don't generally attack relief workers. There was an instance where a couple of relief workers were killed who were Ethiopians, and there was a plane that was shot down with some French relief workers on it, but generally it's not done to attack the relief workers.
We're coming to you live tonight, actually taped live from Port La France restaurant here in Boulder, Colorado. My name's Jan Scott, and this program is Jan Scott Tonight, talking with Pam Stormo, who is, are you the director of FARM, or?
I'm the director.
You're the director, okay. The director of FARM, an acronym for Famine Assistance and Relief Mission. Their specific mission right now is in Sudan and Ethiopia. You're looking for volunteers with overseas experience to be trained later. Are you going to have anybody who's going to sort of hold the fort for you here in Boulder while you're gone? Do you have anybody that will be like that'll kind of keep track of you or in touch with you? That'll be a Boulder connection? Because we'd like to kind of know how you're doing.
Certainly my father will be involved in just keeping in touch with us because of his experience, and we'll be writing frequently and letting people know, especially people who've contributed to the cause, what we're doing. And
well, you know, I hope that you let us know too, because I would certainly, and I think the people will be interested to know here in this community how you're doing once you're there. So we'll give some 3-minute reports every now and then and let people know how things are going. Although we are not finished yet here. What else do we have to do? What else do we have to talk about that we haven't talked about?
Well, we'd like to check up on the other organizations that are already down there and write an article about, you know, how people's money, people who have already contributed to other organizations, how their money is being spent and what the other organizations are doing down there. Because people often wonder, you know, I give money to CARE, what happens to it? So and just to enlighten people on the situation in Ethiopia, right now South Africa is the racy place for the news to be, and so you don't so much hear about the starving people in Ethiopia. It's whatever's trendy in the news. So hopefully just by doing this and getting a little bit of news going about this, people will become aware that there are critical situations on this planet that they can do something about.
You know, it's interesting too that you're starting this mission from this community. Are there any other famine relief organizations going on in this community that you know of? Is anybody else doing anything that you?
I don't know.
You don't know
of any. The people who are.
I haven't heard of anything myself. I mean, I may be very wrong. I'm not the most informed person in the world, but okay. Well, this is good. Maybe this could really turn into something. What is your vision for the future with this? I mean, would you like to see it become a kind of a big deal, or you want to keep it small and accessible, or?
Well, I think in particular in Ethiopia, the government needs pressure from other governments about the way that they treat people, and that any news that's coming out of there will hopefully pressure them into being a little bit more humanitarian, and also to do things like this on an ongoing basis. I mean, I grew up in Boulder, and Boulder is a very wealthy community, and we have a lot of abundance here, and I've been all around to many places in the world where they don't have that. I've been in the Philippines, where they have a whole city of people living on a trash dump, and people are very hungry, and it's very sad. And I think sometimes here in Boulder we forget about that, and we just jog around town and ride our bicycles and think about the good life when you know, everybody deserves to eat. We don't have to struggle for our daily existence, and some people do.
Yeah, I mean, you want to talk about a homeless situation. We seem to talk about the homeless a lot here in the United States, and we make a big deal about Americans being homeless, which I think personally is just a huge con. Most of the homeless are alcoholics and winos on the street, and it's just another way to raise money for various organizations. You want to talk about homeless? Go to Sudan or Ethiopia. You can find people who are homeless, don't have clothes, and don't have food. What I really like is the fact that you're doing something about it.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, I mean that you are saying, okay, you know, we're going to do something about this. We're going to go into, I call it the field. I don't know, what do you call it? The desert?
The field.
The field. How much time do we have left here? I'm trying to get a little cue here from some of my folks. Okay, we got about 7 minutes left. I want to share something with you out of Time magazine. Of all the obscenities of war, none is as inexcusable as the deliberate slaughter of civilizations. Yet much of the world is silent now, though millions of innocent Africans stand in jeopardy of extinction. These people will not die by the sword or the other traditional implements of war. Instead, they will be slain by one of the cruelest weapons of any era, starvation. They will die slowly and painfully. In a world of abundance, they will die hungry. Most of the dying will be done in the Horn of Africa, in Ethiopia, upwards of 4.5 million people, more than 4 times the number wiped out by the Great Famine of 1984 and 85, may starve this year. There's no may about it. They will starve this year. I think time is being kind to those to the statistics here. In Sudan, as many as 250,000 people died of hunger in 1987 and 88. So in 1990, what you're going to see again on television, it's going to come into the news because it'll become trendy in a sense, the way South Africa did. You will see, according to Time magazine, skeletal children, those sickening images, too weak to swat flies away, that swarm around their eyes. To top it all off, there's a war going there to some degree, which will stop the movement and transportation of food. They always seem to go together, doesn't it? Mm-hmm. Famine and war. What really bothers me is this line, in a world of abundance, they will die hungry. And I wonder maybe if things will change. You know, we've seen in Eastern Europe, you know, we've seen glasnost and just democracy spread throughout the world. Central America is starting to go that way now, South Africa. I wonder if the 1990 or 1991 will be the time when we starvation ends here. That it will stop this year, when we'll actually do something about it. Just suddenly, there'll be enough for people to eat. Where it takes.
This incident, like almost all of the violence in this, the longest continuing war in Africa, would not have been noticed by the outside world. It is in this context of war as a way of life that the impending famine should be seen. Last summer, for the third time in the past 5 years, normal rainfall failed to come. As a result, up to 80% of the food crop withered and died in parts of Eritrea and Tigray provinces. That is where the heaviest fighting of the war is taking place. Already, people are starving. In this village in Tigray province, the last of the peasants' food is gone. The last of their savings are spent. The last of the able-bodied men and boys are leaving to search for food to bring home to their families. They are unlikely to succeed. The women, the children, and the elderly are awaiting death. The international aid community believes there are between 4 and 5 million people in danger of dying.
This is now the critical 6 months that we're entering in. And between now and September, you will see a situation where people who might have saved a small amount of grain last year have now used that up completely. So they are at a very, very critical stage. If we don't get food in quickly, then we will see mass starvation, I'm sure of it.
The international community has mounted a massive effort to save people from starving in Ethiopia. The United States is the biggest donor. 500,000 tons of food have been pledged to meet the emergency. More will be needed, and the world seems ready to help. But because of the war, most of the food cannot be delivered. Heavy fighting in and around the Red Sea port of Massawa recently has cut off the main supply route for the relief effort. Government planes bombed and destroyed much of the 45,000 tons of food that were stored there, enough to feed 2 million people for a month. Some food is reaching the famine area from across the border in Sudan, but it is believed to be only about 1/3 of what is required. A new corridor into the drought region has been opened up from the south as government and rebel troops hold their fire for the first time. But the first convoys through were small in size and may be too little too late.
Our gravest concern is that conceivably as many as 2 million of the 3.5 to 4 million people at risk in that area will not be accessible.
Because the food is not reaching them, significant numbers of people are now leaving their homes and fields, walking long distances across the countryside in search of food. It is called migration, and it is a relief worker's nightmare.
And once the people start migrating out of their villages, of course, then they go to camps, and if we were to set up camps, then of course people die much more quickly because of disease.
5 years ago, during the famine that captured the attention and sympathy of the entire world, the relief agencies were unprepared for the scope of the disaster. More than 500,000 people died, many of them concentrated in disease-ridden feeding camps. This time, the world was ready with a rescue plan. Experts sent out word months ago that people should stay in their villages until food aid came to them. Local officials told them, the foreigners will send us food. But because of the war, for most people, it hasn't happened. Now, reluctantly, food relief agencies are making plans to create feeding camps all over again for as many as 500,000 people. At the same time, the massive international aid program is trying to find a way through the battle lines to deliver the food. It is a race against time.
We can still pull this one off. We are not going to have to live through 84, 85 again. But it is literally a question of days and weeks.
For millions of Ethiopians, like this woman scratching for wild grass seeds, they are unaware of the worldwide relief effort waiting to reach them. All they have is the promise: the foreigners will send us food. John Lawrence for Nightline in London.
Later, we'll be talking with representatives of the warring factions in Ethiopia. But first, when we come back, we'll be joined by two Americans trying to deal with the threat of famine. Andrew Natsios of the State Department's Agency for International Development, and Congressman Tony Hall of Ohio, chairman of the House Select Committee on Hunger.
This is ABC News Nightline, brought to you by U.S. Sprint.
If you're confused about which long-distance company has the lowest rates, remember one simple thing. Sprint Plus always costs less. No matter which AT&T Reach Out America plan you have, no matter when you call. And for a limited time, Sprint Plus comes with 30 free minutes of the best-sounding long distance. Just call 1-800-877-4000 now. We'll even switch you for free. Sprint Plus, it's all you need to know about saving on long distance.
Excuse me, where should I go to find out just how good the Eagle Premier's four-wheel independent suspension really is?
Just around the corner.
The good news is this Eagle Premier has a high-tech engine, European styling, and lots of interior room.
So, what's the bad news?
It's not mine.
Will you lie, cheat, and steal for me?
Sure.
Will you give up your job?
Okay.
Will you risk prison?
Yes.
Will you abandon your family?
Say yes to cocaine and you say yes to all these things.
Will you die for me?
I'll die.
I knew you would.
If you or someone you love loves cocaine, call Care Unit. We can help.
It's amazing. Cheap Toyota. It's fantastic.
My legs are tired.
Water concrete.
Douglas Toyota, the Toyota warehouse. Acres and acres of brand new Toyota stacked in the back at warehouse prices. Get a new Camry, $179 down or $179 a month. You can save up to $5,000 on a Toyota. Get a new Corolla, $149 down or $149 a month. Why go from dealer to dealer looking at small inventories? Come to 104th Avenue in Thornton and see it all. Douglas Toyota, the Toyota warehouse, Thornton. Go for the price.
Brent Musburger, he was the star of CBS Sports when they kicked him off the team. Now the reasons he was let go from Musburger himself, live on Primetime Thursday.
Andrew Natsios is in charge of foreign disaster assistance within the U.S. Agency for International Development and was in Ethiopia earlier this year to assess the need for food. He joins us now from Durban, South Africa. We've been having some sound problems from there. I hope he's going to be able to hear me. Ohio Congressman Tony Hall, who's in our Washington bureau, took over the chairmanship of the House Select Committee on Hunger upon the death of former chairman Mickey Leland, who was killed in a plane crash in Ethiopia last August. Mr. Natsios, can you hear me?
Okay.
Mr. Natsios, can you hear me? All right, we'll try and come back to Mr. Natsios a little bit later. Congressman Hall, you're going to have to take up the cudgel. Is the bitterness so great between the forces in Ethiopia that even in the face of the potential of hundreds of thousands of people dying of starvation, there cannot be agreement on getting food to those people?
Well, the bitterness is very deep. They've been fighting for 30 years, but many of us think that there's been some very encouraging signs in the last 10 days. You saw with your own eyes the corridor coming from the southern region of food. It's a trickle of food, but nevertheless, it's a very good sign.
Let me just suggest while you're talking, we're going to put up a map of the region so that people have a sense of what you're talking about when you're talking about the southern corridor and then the port up in the northeast. So when you're talking about the southern corridor, you're talking about coming in, what, from Sudan?
We're talking about coming in from the port of Assab and trucking it into Dessie and going up into the Wello province up near the Tigrayan province, which is it's not the farther northern province, but nevertheless it serves a significant number of people. But the problem is that it's a very insignificant amount of tonnage that's gotten in thus far. Over the past 10 days, it's been a little bit over 1,000 tons. The region needs 100,000 tons a month. So it's an encouraging sign, but we must build on what we have right there.
Now, what about the port city of Massawa? Now, we heard John Lawrence tell us that quite literally tens of thousands of tons of food were bombed and destroyed. That food is desperately needed in that region, of course.
Well, there's no question about that, and we feel that it's very necessary to have that port to move large tonnage of the food to hit the Eritrean population, which numbers about 1.8 million people that are at risk at this particular time.
And why is the food not being permitted through? I mean, what reasons, and we're going to be hearing, as I said earlier, we're going to be hearing from representatives of both the Eritreans and the Ethiopian government in just a couple of minutes. But I'd like to hear from you when the United States says, here's the food, when other countries around the world say, here's the food, just let us bring it in. What are you hearing?
Well, the biggest reason is that the international donors, including us, are willing to bring it in, but the bombing coming from the Ethiopian government of the port of Massawa makes it very difficult. Nobody wants to risk their lives.
And could there not be assurances given that would, I mean, there are an awful lot of very courageous and decent people who are prepared to take rather considerable risks if at least the leaders of both sides would give some representation that they're going to secure the area.
Well, this is a very important issue, and this is, in fact, exactly what we're looking for. But the foreign minister of the Ethiopian government said just a couple days ago that he was intent on not delivering any food to the drought victims until Massawa was taken back by his government. So it leaves the whole situation up in the air. People don't know whether to bring the food in or not bring the food in. Obviously, they could attack tomorrow. They could attack 3 weeks from now. They might never attack. It creates a tremendous strain and problem as to where to take the food. But the food, according to all international donors, most of it, or a good portion of it, must come through that port.
All right, Congressman, if you'll be good enough to stand by, I apologize to Mr. Natsios, who is standing by in Durban, South Africa, where it is now, I guess, about after 6 in the morning, or just after almost 7 o'clock in the morning. Mr. Natsios, can you hear me now? Hello, Mr. Natsios, can you hear me? All right, well, we'll try a little bit later in the program to come back to him. When we return, however, we'll be talking with an envoy from the Ethiopian government and with the representative of one of the main rebel groups in Ethiopia, the Eritrean People's Liberation Front.
Do you really want the lowest bidder to move your valued possessions? Making quality service affordable has made United Van Lines America's #1 family mover. At United, the quality shows in every move we make.
In 1 out of 2 American homes, you'll find Kenmore appliances. Like our 4-peak horsepower canister vacuum with detachable beater bar power mate, just $199.87. Only at Sears and Sears Brand Central.
Rockies, beneath the skies of blue, we work and play a special way and love our barbecue. When folks around here get hungry, they know just what to do. Hit the trail for Luther's Barbecue.
Right now, Luther's is smoking all the tender, tasty ribs you can eat for just $7.49. Every day, 4 p.m. till closing, only at Luther's Barbecue.
At Columbia, we're more like this than this. This isn't us, but this is. We don't like wasting time. We're more energetic. We're 592 people with the right attitude. At Columbia, we'll win you over.
What makes a great sports commentator? Well, experience, perspective, and opinions on everything. Opinions and opinions and opinions. The hoops and hoopla. 9 Sports Mike Nolan. Sports commentary that tells you like it is. Only on 9 News at 10.
When it comes to thinking of new ways to crash test cars, no one goes farther than Volvo. Volvo, a car you can believe in.
Thursday, the IRS is harassing this hard-working woman.
I was losing everything that I worked for.
She's not alone. Could it happen to you? Watch Primetime, Thursday.
Tomorrow, how acting became a new chapter in the life of Patty Hearst. Also, fashions for the 1990 bride and airline clubs. Are they worth the cost? On Good Morning America tomorrow.
Kassa Kebede is a special envoy from the Ethiopian government who is in Washington this week to discuss the food crisis in his country with U.S. officials. Tesfaye Gelmazine, who is also with us in Washington, is the deputy representative to the United States and Canada from the Eritrean People's Liberation Front. The EPLF has been fighting for independence from Ethiopia for nearly 30 years. Mr. Kebede, the judgment of history is likely to be rather harsh, don't you think, if what happened 5 years ago happens again in your country? How, in good conscience, can either side prevent food from getting through to people who so desperately need it?
Well, I think what prevails in terms of the food situation in Ethiopia today is very much different than was in 84, 85, especially because early warning systems this time had enabled us to launch the appeal on time, and the response from the international community had also come in time.
No, you're quite right, and I don't think there's any question about that. Indeed, John Lawrence just reported on the fact that there is now food in place, but he also reported on the fact that your government is preventing it from getting through to the people who need it.
Well, not at all. My government is encouraging that food be delivered to all the affected areas in Ethiopia, be them people in the rebel-held areas or government-controlled areas. They are Ethiopians, and we have a responsibility to ensure that they are properly fed. The delivery question, I think I have carefully heard Congressman Hall, who thinks that the only channel is Massawa. Massawa has always been a supplementary channel, a supplementary route, a supplementary port. The major port in Ethiopia is Assab port, but as regards Massawa, plans for relief delivery were carried out. Hopes were built, and we were about to start what was known as the Northern Corridor, which unfortunately was disrupted by rebel behavior in the area.
You mean the rebels captured the port of Massawa, and then your planes came in and bombed hundreds of thousands of tons of food?
Well, it has, I think, a record and history which goes beyond that. It first happened through sea piracy, which the rebels have launched in the Red Sea, whereby ships bringing in relief supplies were captured, were burnt, were attacked. And what we saw in Massawa later is what followed the sea piracy.
I think your point is well taken, at least to this degree, Mr. Kebede, and Mr. Gelmazine, I would appreciate if you would respond to it. There is no question but that both sides have been guilty of preventing food from getting through to civilians who are sympathetic to the other side. Are those days finally coming to an end, I guess is what I'm asking you.
The question is forwarded for me, apparently, and I guess what we have to say now is the EPLF is ready to facilitate any food delivery and distribution, be it through the port of Massawa, through the port of Port Sudan, and through the port of Assab. And if you see the affected areas, be it in Eritrea or northern Ethiopia, they are more closer to the port of Massawa as opposed to the port of Assab. And if you look at the cost for transportation, transporting food from Assab all the way north through Kombolcha, Dese to Mekelle is astronomically high than transporting it from the Massawa.
Let me see if I can just pick up, and I hope you'll forgive me for interrupting you.
All right.
You have made a rather broad statement, and let me see if it can be matched by the other side. Mr. Kebede, as I understand Mr. Ghemazin, he has said that the Eritrean side would facilitate the passage of food through any port. Will your side make the same kind of statement?
Well, as I have said, we had facilitated the passage of food through Massawa. We had facilitated the passage of food through other ports. What we had facilitated has been disrupted because
I think we have to talk about now. Would you facilitate food delivery and distribution through the port of Massawa? That's the point, and not the past. I guess I can talk a lot about the past too. But let's talk about the present and what we can do in order to save the lives of these 5 million people, Eritreans as well as Ethiopians.
Well, I am very sorry. I'm not here for a debate nor a rhetoric, but if we are going to work for the future, we'll have to recall the past. I am saying that to remind our listeners that the disruption of what was planned to carry out through Massawa had caused the concern which we are discussing today.
No, if I may interrupt and if I may set the agenda, what we are here to discuss today is whether, in fact, food, no matter where it is going to be facilitated, whether the passage of that food is going to be facilitated to the civilian population, no matter whether they be on the Ethiopian side or on the Eritrean side. And that, Mr. Kebede, is the question that I'm posing to you. I don't care about any particular port or any particular point of access, but the broader question of whether food is going to be facilitated, the passage of food to civilians who need it.
When what had started through Massawa had fallen, an alternative route had been planned. It has become operational now through Assab, by road into northern Wallo and Tigray, and also by air into Eritrea. We have not exhausted that possibility, and lots can be done in terms of relief delivery along this new alternative. Now, the Ethiopian government here is very much concerned about the situation. We would like to see that other possibilities, other viable possibilities, are seriously concerned by all parties who participate in the delivery of the relief.
Gentlemen, we're going to have to take a break. We'll continue our discussion in just a moment.
No, my wife and I have been steady companions for years. As a matter of fact, 53 years. I love her smile.
Quite a guy, quite a line.
Everything about her. But I couldn't have made a better choice if the whole world was at my feet.
Come on, you're old flattery.
Put the power of an upright in the palm of your hand with the Royal Dirt Devil. It has a revolving brush, and it can handle all kinds of dirt. Pick up the handheld vac that really picks up. Dirt Devil by Royal.
Finally, equal treatment for hands and nails. Vaseline Intensive Care Hand and Nail Formula Lotion softens rough, dry hands and helps strengthen nails. Available scented and now also fragrance-free.
Mazda won't be shouting about its spring sales event. Why? Just look at this MX-6 GT. Roomier and more powerful than Honda Prelude SI at price $936 less. And now get any MX-6 and get $1,000 cash back, plus air or automatic at no extra charge. With up to $1,810 in value, you don't have to shout. Well, maybe just a little.
At your local Mazda dealers now.
It's the new energy game, Jim. Turning up the heat 2 degrees costs $10 a month. Now we're on $4. Bill, you'll cut heating costs a third by switching to... cold showers? A high-efficiency furnace. Sue, what's the best way to manage energy?
I need more information.
What's she wearing?
This free booklet from Public Service. Play at home. Call 1-800-622-7726 and turn on to the energy facts.
We finally established contact with Andrew Natsios, who's in charge of foreign disaster assistance within the U.S. Agency for International Development. He is currently in Durban, South Africa. Mr. Natsios, sum it up for me as quickly as you can. I know you've only heard bits and pieces of the program.
Well, the problem at this point is unless we have access to both ports, we cannot get enough food in. The Assab route that Mr. Kibeti just mentioned, we appreciate very much, and it's going to be helpful, but that port gets enormous amounts of fertilizer in just when the food is due. We hope to get 270,000 tons of food in the next 9 months through that port. We need 600,000 tons. The only way to do that is to open up the port of Massawa, which is under rebel control and is daily being bombed by the Ethiopian Air Force. We've got to get an agreement from the rebels and the government to open up the port of Massawa so we can get the other half of the food necessary to feed these people through before there's a debacle.
Mr. Germazin seemed to be suggesting that as far as the rebels are concerned, they're prepared to open up the port. True?
Yeah,
they are.
We are.
No, Mr. Natsios, please. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Mr. Natsios.
That is correct, and they've told us that, and we appreciate that. What we'd also like from the rebels, though, both rebel movements, a guarantee that they are not going to attack the port of Assab. There is a report that they are massing troops, perhaps for an attack on Assab, which would close that corridor. So there are problems on both sides, and if both sides would make this the first priority, it would make the entire relief effort work. If they don't, the entire effort will collapse, and hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of people will die this summer and this fall.
Mr. Natsios, gentlemen, I appreciate very much your joining us. If nothing else, I think you've begun to sketch out the dimensions of the problem that we face. But I thank all of you for being with us this evening. That's our report for tonight. I'm Ted Koppel in Washington. For all of us here at ABC News, good night.
That's the key to this show.
Well, I agree with you, yeah. I think so. Yeah. That's all I'm going to say on that.
That's it.
I'm not going to elaborate. Do I have to elaborate?
We have a caller out there. Hello, caller. Are you a possessive woman?
Hi.
Okay, they're working on it.
All right.
Okay, caller, hi.
Hello.
Talk
Hello.
to Tom.
Hi. There you go.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm doing good, I guess.
I hear you like to snowboard.
Yeah, that's the main topic tonight.
Oh, yeah? What are you doing later?
Actually, I'm going to go wax my snowboard.
You are one of the many?
Yeah.
You going to wax the table?
Yeah, I might wax the table.
Oh, yeah? Do you want to go out?
Yeah, what are you doing later?
Oh, I don't know. I have no plans.
Do you like to have fun on the town?
Oh, I'd love to.
Well, let's go have some drinks and get wild.
Sure.
All right.
I'm at work right now, but I have to go home and take a shower first.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Where do you work? Where are you?
I work at Nick and Willie's.
Oh, no.
I knew it. It's another doll girl.
You said they were hard to...
What's that?
Do you know who this is?
I could take a guess.
Okay.
Rami?
Really? Good.
Hey, Rami.
What?
Hey, Rami.
How are you?
I'm doing good. So how's the pizza baking?
I don't know, actually. I'm not. I came in to just watch you on television.
Oh, really?
We're drinking some Jonesies and some Jose.
All right. Well, maybe that's where I'll come afterwards.
Sounds like you should.
What?
Maybe that's where I should come, you know, since you guys have gotten one of the highest ratings tonight.
There you go.
Inviting him after
Where
the
you
show?
gave Leslie a 3. She's lost weight since then, though.
Rami.
Well, Leslie, you weigh 182 pounds. I didn't know that. You hide under those...
Have you ever seen her in a bathing suit?
No, but I've seen her in those thick sweaters, and I can't see much, so... She might be 190 for all I know.
No. She's sweated off a few pounds since the last time you spoke to her.
All right.
Okay, well, I have to go home now.
All right, well, you go home and take a shower and get cleaned up. Put on some nice perfume.
Okay, just for you, Tom.
And we'll talk to you.
Hey, do I get higher than an 8?
Make sure you leave your phone number at the desk, because I don't have...
It's on your mirror.
It's on my mirror. How did
I'll
it
talk
get?
to you later.
How did it get there?
I don't know.
Wow.
See ya.
I'll call you.
All right.
Bye.
Thank you for calling.
Bye.
That's the end of our exciting show tonight.
Do I get to rate her?
Yes, please do.